fiction, science fiction. We make no guarantees, however, how long it will remain fiction, fiction, fiction.
Apocalyptic salutations to all you cognonauts out there, and welcome to the end of the world. This is Exofathom, the show that dares to explore the outside reaches of understanding. I am Nick, and I am joined by my two lovely co-hosts. Mike, how you doing?
Oh, not too bad. Just hanging out on the pillow fort. I
Awesome.
figure if it's the end of the world, this will protect me.
That's right. You got a pillow bunker, and you're ready to go. I like it. And we have Ayla. How you doing, Ayla?
Well, I'm wishing I had a pillow bunker. That sounds really cool. But maybe I'll make a blanket fort and we can declare enemies of one another.
Oh, wow. We're just going to have to launch like snowballs at each other or something.
Yeah. Good
Softballs.
community reference there.
Of course, yes. If you're that was a great episode.
Well, thank you guys so much for listening out there. We really appreciate you and taking the time out of your day to listen to the podcast. It means a whole lot to us. We hope that you enjoy this episode. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the end of the world. And maybe a little bit of background to why we're choosing this topic. This one's been rattling in my brain for maybe I'd say a month now, to be honest. And I've been... I don't know. I don't think I've been noticing, but I have noticed in the past, and I have gotten myself caught up in the fascination with the end of the world, that it made me start to wonder what the sort of psychology or even anthropology of the end times is. Because it would seem to me, and I think you guys probably remember this now, I don't know where this is from, but I distinctly remember any cartoon that was depicted in the Roman times back in the day, you would have a guy with a sign saying the end is nigh. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah. Well, I'm used to both, I guess. Like with the guy with the sign, this is the end of nigh in Roman times. And then in more modern times, you kind of see the same thing or the same gag.
Right. Yeah. And so I think I remember seeing that in lots of movies and stuff, and that used to be a very running gag through movies and cartoons, that you would always have that guy on the street corner saying it's the end of the world, it's the end of the world. And so that kind of got me thinking about what that is as like a psychological mechanism, and also just a human mechanism. Like, why is it that we're so fascinated by the end of the world? What makes it so intriguing to us humans? And so it kind of led me to do a little research, look into it a little bit. I have some interesting information for you guys to sort of fill in this episode, but really I wanted this to be a sort of conversation about this concept. So we'll be starting this off with a couple questions, and then I have a little bit of a fun segment for you guys where you're going to let me know. You're going to pick a number between 0 and 2000, and maybe even 2022 if you want. And I'm going to tell you what the apocalypse du jour was, what the end of the time of the month was for that era. And we'll get into a little bit of Armageddon, Noah's flood, and all of that type of stuff with the mythology. So without much further ado, let's jump into the episode. And first, I wanted to ask you guys the questions that I had for you to start this off. So no particular order. What is your favorite apocalyptic movie?
Ooh. Just off the top of my head, probably the one that comes up right away is Day After Tomorrow. Do you remember that one with Jake Gyllenhaal and
is that Nicolas Cage?
It's not. No. Yeah, it's not another Nicolas Cage movie.
Oh yeah, he was in one of those apocalyptic movies, wasn't he?
He's in a ton of those types of movies. But no, it had Dennis Quaid, Emmy Rossum, Jake Gyllenhaal, Cella Ward, Austin Nichols.
That's the one where everything froze over, right?
Yes. It was a cataclysmic Earth event, which was interesting because It was just about extreme weather patterns, and what happened is that global warming accelerated the next ice age, and so yeah, and so it just looked like, well, first the graphics were kind of cool the way that they did it because you get to see like tornadoes strike LA. And it's funny because like during that scene in particular, everybody was very LA about it. Like, oh, look at that tornado. They weren't running or hiding or anything like that. And I don't know. I guess it just had a lot of cool graphics. It had a lot of really interesting dialogue, cool like traversing, adventuring scenes. And then there was this cool scene too where like New York got overtaken by rising sea levels, and this giant Navy ship like floated up to the public library. And then, of course, the zoo, all the animals busted out. So you have this like pack of wolves that are like stalking people, and like they have to get to the ship to get medicine. And it was a lot of ground covered in like a 2-hour film. I was like, looking back, I'm like, damn, they really took that from pre-event to during to post. And I even like that they got into the geopolitics of it, where like US, yeah, it was just interesting.
Yeah. I don't remember. I think that movie came out right next to like 2012, wasn't it?
I
like
think
those
so.
two movies came out very close to each other.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's why I get it all mixed up sometimes.
There's a bit of a climate crisis, end of the world fad in Hollywood for a little bit. Like you have like San Andreas as well, The Rock. So yeah, like a bunch of these movies kind of coming out within 5 years of each other, I guess. And everyone was all about that. I don't know why.
Volcano in LA.
No, they're all about that.
Well, yeah, and there was another strain of like alien, like you had The Knowing. That's the Nick Cage. Actually, The Knowing is actually really freaking good too. So it's a tie between The Knowing and Day After Tomorrow, because Day After Tomorrow is just sort of like fun. The Knowing's like definitely frightening. But that's in the same category of like The Day the Earth Stood Still with Keanu.
Yeah.
Mike, what about you? What's your favorite apocalyptic movie?
I feel like you already know my answer to this.
Well, I mean, I could, probably. But would you consider that? I guess it is an apocalypse, but it's more localized.
What, Terminator 2?
Yeah. No, I was going to say that you were going to say Godzilla, to be honest.
No.
That's kind of apocalyptic too.
Yeah, a little bit, but I think given enough time, humans would be able to figure out a way to kill Godzilla.
Yeah. Well, Terminator 2 is a much better representation of apocalypse.
Yeah, it goes into the apocalypse.
That scene on the fence, remember, where she's like,
the dream when
burned to a crisp. Freaking terrifying. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's what got me into intelligent systems.
Cool.
Yeah. I just wanted to make Skynet. Is that such an awful thing?
It's gonna get made anyways.
Yes.
Come on.
Yeah. I might as well be the person to do it.
Yeah.
But no, just I mean, that was my favorite as a kid, just from all the cool stuff that was going on. But as an adult, kind of looking back, I do like the idea that one person can kind of stop the apocalypse. Like it takes all these things to make an apocalypse happen, right? You have a whole company building something, but then you have this very small story where like it's just a kid and the mom who ends up stopping the whole apocalypse, or at least delaying it.
Right.
But I always found that idea kind of fascinating. And as far as apocalypses go, I feel like it's only natural that we create the thing that snuffs us out of the evolutionary tree. It just seems proper.
It seems poetic.
I would like to add that it was a mom, a kid, and a German Shepherd. There was a dog in that Jeep helping to fight the evil robots. So,
did you just call Arnold Schwarzenegger a dog?
No, they actually had a dog in the second one when she's like crossing the border or whatnot.
I know.
Jeep, that iconic scene. The dog. You can't forget the dog. It's important.
It is very important. Yeah. I tried to rack my head a little bit about this one because there's so many came to my mind. So
I'm such a fan of The Happening too. I know it's like that's a hard one for you to
what an
beat.
awful movie, but
Yeah, it's really bad.
But actually, that's looking back, I appreciate that movie because I could see how like all the plants would get together and be like, we're gonna create killer pollen and like humans are just gonna stop eating us and stuff. So
it wasn't a unoriginal idea, that's for sure. Just poorly executed, I think.
What? No.
Right? Shyamalan? Come on. But yeah, like I went through my head a million times because there's so many different types of apocalyptic movies, like Ayla was saying, referencing just a minute ago with the genres. So like natural disaster movies, I was a big fan of. I like Dante's Peak, but that wasn't really apocalyptic because everything was fine at the end.
Oh, I would see Pierce Bronson in an end of the world film. Absolutely. He was so good in Dante's Peak. Like, what a creepy film.
Oh.
But Deep Impact was good. Deep Impact was one of my favorites.
Deep Impact.
Yeah, because you had that shot of the tidal wave. That was always like one of my biggest fears, especially living in, coastal California. Seeing a 500-foot tidal wave just coming at you, it's like that's a wrap, man. It's over.
Oh, that's the one with Morgan Freeman at the end, where it's like he's in the snow, walking with the people.
Yeah, he's the president. And it's basically a string of asteroids hits Earth, basically just destroys everything, except for a small contingent of humans, which I find very interesting because in almost all apocalyptic tales, there is a small contingent of humanity that survives.
Was that Elijah Wood in Deep Impact?
I think he was in that, yeah.
I think that's the movie that makes me always, if anybody talks about like disasters, I always bring up, damn, I wish I had like a motorcycle because, right, like you can get out of sticky spots really easily. And in that case, they were able to take the motorbike up a mountain and avoid the Deep Impact water
waves
deluge. Yeah.
And then you had let's see, 2012 was another pretty decent one. That was where everybody basically all of the elites in society had arcs that they got access to, so that when when the seas rose, they just rode their arcs from the Himalayas out into the ocean.
And this like limo driver like catches wind, and so he like makes it happen. No, that's a good one. And I like the crazy guy, the Owen. What's his name? The guy that had the maps, and he was like super crazy, but he ended up predicting all of it. It was like
Woody Harrelson. Right?
Woody Harrelson, yeah, he did that role very good.
Yeah, definitely.
Yellowstone, right before he dies. It's great.
Right, and doing the Alex Jones thing. Yeah. Just broadcasting. Yeah, so I mean, like, there's tons of them, and then you can think about like post-apocalyptic, where you have more of like I was thinking like Mad Max or something along those lines too.
One that we didn't mention was Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
That's true.
The world does end in movie, yeah. And what I love about it is it's so bureaucratic wide ends. It's because of an interstellar freeway or highway that has to be built.
Right. Eminent domain gets pulled.
Yes. On Earth.
Yeah. And so it's interesting because I bring all of these up because I wanted to touch on this concept that even during the apocalypse and at the resolution of the apocalypse, it's very important in our stories to have pockets of humanity survive. I don't think there are any apocalyptic movies where there aren't some survivors. I mean, maybe can you think of any?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's hard to make a movie like that, though.
That's right. Whose perspective?
Because you have to be able to relate to a character. Maybe in the animated world, if you go dark, you could have a world where all the humans die, and you have like, you follow the animals and evolution from there. Even like, so you ever seen Adventure Time?
Yes.
So it's like pretty much a kid's cartoon, but it has a really dark underlying like subplot where you have Finn, who's known as the last human, and it's because the world goes through a World War III scenario and we nuke ourselves, and everything that's existing within this land was a part of Earth, but has now mutated, except
Mhm.
for Finn. He's the last human. But even then, you still have one human, so you have to have a character to relate to.
Right.
So I think that's why in movies there's at least some small pocket that survives.
Hmm.
Does
Yeah.
it count if the world ends, but the humans still survive a little bit?
Well, that's a good question, right? Because I would venture to say through our storytelling, and I can point to a couple of references in a little bit that like yeah, it does kind of matter because most of the end times happen with a certain level of humanity making it out. Because what you find is that in these stories, the end times is also the ushering in of a new age.
Mm.
And then so that becomes very psychologically important because in order to create the new age, you have to destroy the prior age. And so you get into this weird sort of death and rebirth, resurrection thing going on that to me, it would seem like it speaks pretty deeply to our souls.
Yeah. Well, destruction is an act of creation. So taking that to like the most dramatic level, yeah, it makes sense. And like
Yeah.
I don't think the world can end with humans surviving. I think the world will always be here. Um, but maybe that's because human storytelling is human centric.
Right.
So as long as humans survive, the world doesn't end.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you get the REM song, "It's the End of the World as We Know It." So
Yeah.
not just
But
the
I
end.
feel fine.
Yeah, you should feel fine. It's all good.
Yeah.
And another reason why I wanted to sort of have this casual conversation about this is because I think there's a lot of fear that people get about this concept. And I think that sometimes we as social humans get addicted to this sort of millenarianism, which is which is kind of the official word for a belief by religious groups or social political groups in a fundamental transformation of society where everything will be changed. And obviously, we want things to be changed for the better, but you got to go through your growth and your rebirth and all of that before you can get to that end. And I think that to me, that feels like it's, partially coming from a dissatisfaction with the current environment, maybe. Like, where do you think that urge comes from? This millenarianism, this sort of drive to wish for the end of times.
I don't know if it's so much wishing for the end of times as it's like contemplating possible ends and then trying to escape that fate. Like, I think it's just a product of our self-preservation instinct to try to anticipate what could end us and then try to find remedies. I would hope. I would hope that's why we're kind of motivated.
So there's two camps, right? There's like the camp that Ayla's talking about where we survive, and then there's more like the anarchical, like the let's destroy it all to build something new. And I think it does come. I think both sides come from dissatisfaction of status quo, because even the side that's like let's survive longer, let's avert the end of the world. You're still changing it, right? You're still, it's not exactly the status quo. So it's self-preservation, but there's it's a desire for like self-transformation.
There's an element of fantasy that I feel like there is, where it's like you're almost kind of like LARPing in your head about how you would handle the end of the world, which dovetails into my next question pretty well, which is, if you guys could end the world, how would you do it? Now, you don't have to do it the most efficient way. I mean, like, if you're more about pageantry, you can do it that way too. But their efficiency is also, a category you can choose.
Okay, wait. So we're like mythical gods who are gonna like just
say you're
start
omnipotent,
over.
you're looking over Earth right now. What do you send to Earth to just wipe it out?
Oh, Ooh, Ooh, I know. Okay, I got it. Either of you guys watch the movie Perfume?
No, isn't that the one where the guy makes perfume out of women?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I didn't watch
Okay.
it.
Well, I don't know. No, I better not say.
You're gonna turn
Say
everybody
it.
to perfume.
No. In the end
This
of
is
that
like a
movie,
pheromone-based attack. This
We're
is
doing
what it's
shadow.
about.
We're doing shadow work right now, Ayla. Come on.
Oh well, no, because if you're gonna
Let's do it.
psychoanalyze this later, I don't
No.
want to say.
Oh, why?
No, it was kind of funny, so I'm gonna put that in my hat pin
Ayla,
in
this
case
is
it
a
comes back
safe
to bite me in the
space
ass.
where you
Uh-huh.
can express any idea you want.
Okay, well, so in the movie Perfume, it's about this guy. He has like super sense or super smell, and he's really good at making perfume. And the process of it, right, is you put something in a jar with oil to preserve the scent, and then you can start to distill that and combine it with other things. Anyway, yes, he does get a little murder happy because he ends up falling in love with the chick, and she has great pheromones, and he like puts her in a vat of oil and like somehow preserves her scent. Then he realizes that like 27 women later, he can get like the perfect perfume. What ends up happening is that it smells so good that when he's about to be executed, he releases it, and everybody that comes to watch his murdering has a massive orgy. And so I was like, well, okay, what's like the nicest way you could dispose of Earth? Well, we'll just put some happy pheromones, and everybody just like had like
Death by
has a nice
snoo.
exit.
Death by Bacchanalia. Yeah.
Wouldn't be too bad. That'd be a fun way to end the world.
Yeah, I mean, like everybody says they want to go in their sleep anyway. Why not after a nice session of stuff? Then we feel like relaxed.
Yeah.
Kindest
death by
way
rum.
I could think. The only other would be like death by chocolate. But what am I gonna do? Put a bunch of chocolate asteroids with poison in it, and then I don't know.
You could do that.
I
You
guess.
could literally make an asteroid out of like, super
Chocolate?
hard chocolate somehow.
Oh, could you imagine how hot? Like it would be like lava fudge.
Molten hot fudge.
Chocolate. Yeah, and it would run you over and just
That'd be awful. And then like all the people are like, "Oh my God, why is God so cruel?" And I'm up here like, "I thought it was gonna be delicious."
Right.
it was pretty good.
All right. So we got death by Saturnalia or chocolate. And Mike, what about you?
I'm far more simple than that. Just AI. Just drop like some intelligent silicone based life that can learn fast, that can evolve and learn faster than humans. Just let it go.
Yeah. How long do you think that would take? Like how long, if you were able to drop the like say your AI is perfect, like maybe an hour?
It would depend on the starting point.
Right.
Like if it was left alone to like evolve and stuff, you get like a day, a couple days.
Right.
How long did it take us to roll through Iraq? However long that took, it would be like that, but for the whole human process.
Probably less time though, to be honest. Like all it has to do is just tap itself into the banking system and the internet, and it's game over.
Yeah, right. Just start crashing economies. That would actually be like a delicate touch if it wanted to stay in the shadows and just like ruin things for humans and let them like civil war it out, and then the AI rolls in afterwards once their weekend.
That's the way to go, man. Yeah. Okay, so death by AI, that's a good one.
What are you thinking?
I didn't. That's really tough. Like I'm between. So what I'm thinking is you got to cause like a chain of events. So what I would say is, I mean, you can't get any better than the classic comet or asteroid. That is really just that's pinnacle end of the world right there. But what you do is you don't make the asteroid too big. You make it big enough to vaporize Antarctica and unleash all of the ancient viruses. And then the viruses take over the rest of humanity. I mean, the impact will take a lot of people out, but the viruses will definitely help.
Damn, dude, that's like a slow, horrific burn. Shit.
Yeah.
Nah, I mean, quicker than you think.
Yeah, I mean, the initial impact. Yeah.
Another one might be like if you want to preserve humans for their fleshiness and utility, you could do like a parasite that you control.
Right.
I guess this gets more into AI space too. Like imagine a nanobot that took over your brain and then patched it to whoever was controlling everything. And then they got control over the humans.
Just Borg it out, man.
Yeah.
Borg it out. Yeah. All right. So we got a Snoo, we have AI, and we got the T-Rex rhinovirus. But yeah, I mean, so like these are all the things that we can kind of sort of play with, because there is something I think that is sort of intriguing about what the end looks like, and I think there's probably a little bit of ego involved, perhaps, that we secretly, maybe not secretly, but subconsciously might want to feel special enough to witness the end times. Especially since it seems in our mythology that the ones to witness the end times are always chosen by God. And so maybe there's this like feeling in humans that maybe came from our mythology, really, that told us, the end times are witnessed by God's chosen people. And so the desire to be a part of the chosen also sort of feels exciting.
Maybe, but that might be a little naive. Because imagine the survivor guilt. Like, you witnessed the end of the world, you survived it. Now it's up to you. It's your responsibility to shoulder the weight of humanity.
Right. Well, that leads right into the next question for you guys, which is, what do you think if humanity weren't to end in a total way, but we have had bottlenecks in the past, socially, like anthropological bottlenecks where things have happened and the human species was reduced to maybe a few thousand people. I think that the volcano Toba was the last time that happened. And we got reduced to something like maybe a couple thousand, a few thousand, handful of thousand of people.
That's wild.
Yeah, and so basically everybody that exists now are the ancestors or the progeny of those bottlenecked people. So at one point in our history, about 17,000 years ago is when that happened. 70,000. Humans actually did experience the end of the world, where 99% of humanity was eradicated. And so, I mean, that makes me wonder, since we're doing sort of this exercise in fantasy, like, what do you think that would be like? Mike, you spoke about survivor's guilt. Like, so what would it be to survive the end of the world?
A pain in the ass. So you would have to pick up all the responsibilities of others, or try to learn as best as you can, or pick up new skills. I think you might be happy that you live, maybe, but I see one where it's like more Mad Max, like total chaos, every man for themselves, and then one where hopefully the surviving Bix would recognize how important, how special community, or how important it is for a group to survive, and would just start bringing in all people, no matter who they were, right? There's two different things, but it would be a lot of work, and then just picking up skills you never had. Like, if the end of the world happens, I'm a computer programmer. My skills wouldn't mean shit. Like, unless I found a way to get electricity up off the ground again,
right?
Like, started to gain computers to network, rebuilt communication infrastructure, but I don't know that stuff,
Right.
So then I would have to pick up a whole new set of skills. So whoever was left would have no choice but to adapt. It would be a lot of work. It'd be a lot of struggle. Might be easier just to die in the end of the world than to survive it, but it'd be a lot of hard choices. And if you took the lazy route, then it might mean we would have to get comfortable with like cannibalizing, because you would imagine too, like our own food stock would go away, right?
Yeah.
So, and we don't have agriculture. I don't know how to plant. I don't know how to farm. Uh, so if we didn't have any farmers, then all those skills have to be relearned. If they can't, then you're just going to slowly dwindle out, I feel like, until we rediscover agriculture and things like that.
Yeah. Well, and so that you saying that right now to me kind of like, so the surviving the end of the world would be only capable for the most actualized human. And actualized, I mean, in a very particular way, in a way of somebody who has a wide variety of skill sets, and also an incredible amount of resolve. I would think as well. So which gets into the point of the ushering in of the new age, right? It's the people that are deserved of existence actually are the ones that survive.
Uh,
Loosely in the mythology. Yeah.
Yeah, in the mythology, sure. I feel like in actual cases, you would either form yourself to be worthy or you would die out.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you would pick up those new skills. You may not even have like a wide set of skills, but the resolve is more important.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you can always learn. That's always a good thing.
That's the one skill you need to have is the ability to learn.
Mm-hmm. Ayla, what about you? What do you think? What would happen? You think you're surviving?
Well, I think it depends on a lot of factors for sure, but at this point in time, like if something were to happen, no, because I walked 2 blocks and I am jacked up because of it. So I don't know that I'd be able to get very far. But in my heyday, pre manufactured defect knee, yeah, because I could, I could probably, I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm having a moment now where I'm like, wow, if a comet really did come at us, I would be extremely
You're a liability.
SOL. Yeah. I need that motorcycle.
I'm gonna have to get you like a wagon so I can just pull you along with me.
Oh my god. Yeah, well, make sure Indy has some space too.
Yeah.
No, I think it depends. I think like the bottleneck time would be definitely different from now. And I mean it to say in the sense that like Mike was saying, we are really removed from the things that allow us to survive more in the natural world. Like I have some exposure to agriculture and livestock care just because of my family, but I mean, yeah, like I'd be better than your average bear at surviving, but like it just depends on like all those life skills of like hunting food if it's available, like Mike said, remembering how to do agriculture again. I do think that people collectively can pool knowledge and resources, and our aptitude to learn those things on the fly is pretty high. I mean, like you would have to band together and really cooperate with one another to start figuring things out. But at the same time, I don't know, depending on how things went down, I doubt that like the preservation of the future would be at the forefront of a mind of a person, right? Because you got to think about like all the trauma that you would experience and the fear. If it was a volcano that was just like erupting over and over and over again, I would think the first mission would be to get as far away from it as possible and or figure out like cave systems that, will insulate you from falling lava or something. So I think like your immediate concerns would probably dictate a lot of what you do, as well as like fear-based concerns over the immediate threat. And then maybe in some time you can start to settle down and be like, okay, how are we going to rebuild? But I do think that like something like that's going to stand out in your mind, your psyche for a very long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm actually really curious now of like, apocalyptic sampling. Like given a apocalypse and a group of people that lived, what professions would survive? And if there's any bias towards who would survive. That's all.
Yeah, advantages or something like that. I read this in a pretty interesting Reddit thread not a long time ago, but it was from a long time ago. It was from some Eastern European guy who lived in one of those Soviet satellite countries where their electricity and water just went out. And he talked about how society was like that for, I think he said it was like a year and a half or something like that, where society just didn't have electricity or water. And it's so harrowing to hear him talk about how quickly everything just collapses. And he was saying, the most important things, a lot of people talk about having like cash or gold, and he was like, it doesn't matter. He said the most valuable thing he saw in that year and a half of having no food and water is somebody who had boxes of lighters.
Oh shit.
That's it. He said that it was one of the best currencies to use in this scenario and he was also talking about how like you couldn't go out in the daytime because there was, marauding people who will try to steal from you. So you had to only use specific routes at night to go to places. And there was a black market where people got their goods and stuff, but you had to be careful about going. But yeah, he said alcohol and lighters are the biggest things that you can have in a post-apocalyptic sort of scenario because
they have the most utility.
Yep, absolutely.
You can light a fire, you can trade it. You can get drunk, you can light a fire, you can trade it.
Right, exactly. And he's like, look, a carton of cigarettes is worth more than an ounce of gold in that scenario. Just is. What are you going to do with gold? There's no electronics to make it into. There's nothing to smelt it into. Yeah,
you would have to have a whole bunch of other skills to make that useful.
Right. So it is interesting how delicate society is. And something as easy as, it doesn't even have to be apocalypse, because obviously a lot of people in that country survives, although many did not. All you have to do is turn the lights out.
Yep. And the interesting thing is, as we push towards a single energy producing substance or thing, once you start centralizing something like that, it can get very dangerous, right? If we all switch to one single production of energy, no matter what it is, you cut that single line of production off, you're done.
Right. Yeah. It's and these are the things that I think that normally we don't think about because they are very extreme. I mean, I don't know if anybody in that country, I forget which it was, maybe Yugoslavia or something like that, but I'm sure everybody knew that things were bad before everything went to shit, but I don't think anybody knew to that level, because you take electricity for granted, man. You really do. Yeah. And if you don't have electricity, the water doesn't run in your pipes because it takes electricity to push the water. And so if it's not being pushed, you don't have water,
Yeah. And just like that, your whole mindset changes.
Right. And you adapt, and you have to become adaptable. And I think that's that's why myths of apocalypse are also sort of odes to human adaptation and sort of our ability to overcome the greatest adversity. And like I think Ayla mentioned, the greatest adversity is the end of the world, right?
An apocalypse, in my mind, equals in some sense like Revelation, because Revelation's from the Bible,
Yeah.
Which is like this groundbreaking new fact that changes the way you see the entire world, the way that you shape reality. And that is apocalypse. It's not, you don't have to have a comet fall from the sky, but you can be introduced to a new truth, and then all of a sudden everything changes. And it's the same thing.
Yes. Apocalypse literally just means the unveiling, I think, right? The reveal. Yeah. It just means to reveal something. So, yeah. And then, we get into this, again, this concept of the paradigm shift. And, it's been something that's been with us forever. I mean, we just briefly, you just mentioned Revelation, and that is something that I wanted to kind of dive into, but after reading, so the book of Revelation is very long, and there are a lot of intricate parts to it. So let me just bring up a couple of the what I wanted to do was to bring up a couple of the like steps to what happens during Revelation, but I don't know if I have that. I might not. But yeah, Ayla, you good? Just thinking.
I'm good. Okay. I'm at the bottom of my cup of tea, so I don't want to be like noisily drinking tea.
Huh? I said your tea's gone cold.
Yeah, it's still. I mean, it's just a little bit, but that last little bit, you get that like.
Ayla, are you wondering why you got out of bed at all?
That's right. Yeah.
What's going on? What? I'm just.
It's a Dido song. It's a song. Yeah.
Which? Oh.
Thank you.
Never mind.
There's a sample used by Eminem for the song "Stan." My tea's gone cold, and I'm wondering why I got out of bed at all.
Oh, you two and your mind melds. Okay, I get it.
But famously for the book of Revelation, it talks about the seven seals. And so I just wanted to go over the seven seals with you guys real quick and see if you had any sort of interpretations of what those could mean metaphorically or even in sort of a grander narrative. But if you guys are interested in reading Revelation, I just even went to the Wikipedia page, and this thing is dense. It is very dense. So, and I believe that religious scholars study Revelation as just like a specialty. So this will be a very novice, cursory look at the seven seals of Revelation, which we're supposed to sort of usher in the apocalypse. This is what starts the end of the world, according to the book of Revelation. And so let's see here. Where the hell did I put it? See, I scrolled and then totally missed my spot. See, this is why you don't do this.
It happens to the best of us. Don't worry.
Yeah. Okay. So the seven seals. The first seal is the white horse, whose crowned rider has a bow with which to conquer. The second seal is a red horse, whose rider is granted a great sword to take peace from the earth. The third seal is a black horse and appears whose rider has, quote, a pair of balances in his hands, where a voice then says, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. And see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. The fourth seal is a pale horse who appears, whose rider is death, and hell follows with him. Death is granted a fourth part of the earth to kill with sword, with hunger, with death, and with the beasts of the earth. The fifth seal is under the altar, and it appears the souls of martyrs for the word of God who cry out for vengeance. They are given white robes and told to rest until the martyrdom of their brothers is completed. The sixth seal is a great earthquake where the sun becomes black as sackcloth of hair and the moon like blood. The stars of heaven fall to the earth, and the sky recedes like a scroll being rolled up. Every mountain and island is moved out of place. The people of earth retreat to caves and mountains. The survivors call upon the mountains and the rocks to fall on them so as to hide them from the wrath of the Lamb. And then this is where 144,000 of the 12 tribes of Israel are sealed as servants of God on their forehead. And it just keeps going from there. So those are the seven seals, the seventh seal being the 144,000 of the tribe of Israel, basically being handpicked by God to sit this one out, which is what we call the rapture in the sort of Christian folklore. It's believed that 144,000 individuals will be plucked from the Armageddon just in the nick of time by God so that they don't have to experience it. It's a pretty enlightening book, pretty easy reading, huh?
Like some fun stuff.
Some fun stuff, yeah.
But I mean, Have you seen the Seventh Seal?
The Seventh
Oh.
Seal.
Ages ago.
It was an old movie that came out in the 50s about a guy playing, we're having a conversation with death, basically.
Mm.
I don't remember parts of it, but like I was maybe like 19 when I saw it. I think I was a little bit too immature with respect to film to see it, but it deals with these concepts of revelation.
Yeah. Yeah, and trust me, like there's you don't have to just take it from the sort of Christian Bible perspective. There are tons and tons of mythologies that talk about this, earliest being the Babylonians and the Sumerians with the end of the world, and every culture subsequently has had an end of times story, basically the sort of end of history where God reclaims the earth, and it's almost the exact same thing in every culture. It's God or the gods or whatever the hierarchy is comes to reclaim the earth, and the ones who are just are rewarded, and the ones who are unjust and wicked are punished. So it's that, speaking of like we've talked about Nemesis before, right? It's like that spirit of divine retribution. Finally, the wicked get their day, and the lambs of God get to be saved from the end of the world.
Yeah, but I mean, do you really want to start over? Do you really want to be a part of the ones that have to do all that work?
I don't know, man. Ask Noah; he was fine with it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, it's just sort of it's interesting how rapture always comes into play, like you were talking earlier. I think like we always, maybe it is a way to deal with that survivor's guilt of saying that we were blessed by God to survive it. Because the way that I sort of see it is just sort of random chance, I guess. Unless the skies actually open up and you see the four horsemen of the apocalypse. You hear loud trumpets in the background. You get to witness the rapture, all of that, or be a part of the rapture. Until all of that happens, to me, it's a very nice psychological coping mechanism for surviving the end of the world.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I also think that it's a staying mechanism for because I think we've had this conversation many a times, but to me it also seems like the final judgment or the apocalypse is also kind of like a staying mechanism for humanity and society from passing too much judgment and maybe becoming tyrannical. Because you can think of it as if, as a society, you believe that God is going to have a reckoning with your society in the near future. Maybe you don't have to become this, total dictatorship to keep everybody in line. Or you can allow God, quote unquote, to make the final judgment of the person that committed some sort of transgression.
Yeah. You get to relax a little bit and allow free will to do its thing. Because you have faith that God will take care of things in the end.
Right. And I think that ties in obviously with afterlife and stuff like that. But I do think that that's really kind of an interesting sociological mechanism that, whether true or not, has actually maybe stayed the hand of some tyranny over the ages. I don't know how much, but it's quite possible that the belief that there would be judgment from a higher entity at some given point may have kept, leaders from killing a whole bunch of people. Who knows?
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
That's what it's there for, I think.
Right.
Why do you think there were only 7 seals? Why not?
Well,
wait, can we just back up? What do they mean by a seal? Like, how are they using that word? Because, like, I think of seal and I think of like, so this is why I get
like
really
a sea
quiet
lion?
whenever. Well, no, I think of like a seal, like a notary seal or something. You know what I mean? Like, so anytime any like Bible stuff comes up, I just get really quiet because that makes no sense. Like, all the words are like really reverse and layered.
Well, they're
and it's like,
ancient
go read this
English.
$2,000 book to. Sorry.
Yeah, maybe just calm down for a second.
No, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Okay, sorry. Now I'm realizing that.
What do
like,
you? I mean, what do you need it to make sense? The word
I think
seal.
I'm
You have a problem with that?
No, I'm insecure because I haven't read the volume of books out there about it. So I just
Okay.
don't like even a word as simple as seal. I think sticker, but now they're talking about trumpets and stuff, and like, how
Have
does
you
that make
ever
sense?
heard of an event that seals your fate? Like you did something, and then once the action was done, that was the seal.
Like a Ziploc, like a closure, like
a
cutting
sticker.
event.
So imagine an event was a sticker. So I sealed my fate when I went all in with a 2-7 offsuit in the game of Texas Hold'em.
So like 7
that
seals is
So
sealing.
7 events that lead to the apocalypse.
That are also sealed by God, aka promised by God. So you're looking at this seal as there are 7 promises of God that will usher the apocalypse,
and each one of these will happen no matter what.
So do they think like God doesn't like us? Is that or just some people? Because some people are. I don't know.
So this isn't.
I'm
about
this. I'm so confused.
This doesn't just have to be about Christian religion. So maybe just don't be uncomfortable about it because we can talk about any religion.
No, it's not that. I think it's just the particulars of the super nuanced allegory and terminology and larger picture that I don't understand. So I basically just mean to say I don't mean to be quiet. I just don't have much to add to the because I also think about Dexter and that weird whole series where they had that guy that was
bringing about the revelation.
Yeah, via tableaus, what?
Well, you have to know too that at one time Christians were heavily persecuted, so they spoke a lot in code to avoid being persecuted.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Have you ever seen the fish thing on the back of cars? The weird little that means Jesus. The reason why people did that was that you would draw the top one and somebody would draw the bottom one, and you both knew that you were Christian, so you were able to speak freely.
Yeah, so I think the folklore is you drew the line in the sand, and then somebody did the other line with your foot or something like that.
Yeah, but regardless, it was this sort of coded language could be on purpose in order to keep the truth within the people that believed and without getting stoned to death or crucified.
I appreciate that reminder. I totally that actually is soothing. I understand now. Okay, sorry. I don't know why I got so angry about all the secrecy. I was like, just freaking say what you're trying to say.
Yeah, because these are esoteric documents, babe. Yeah, they are cryptic for sure. Because you're thinking that these originally were only meant for the initiated. Are you there? Can you hear me?
I'm here.
No? Okay.
Yeah,
I think we just lost Mike. Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, he'll be back. No worries. But yeah, anyways, as I was saying, the terminology is it would be like 2 people in a secret society coming up with language, and then obviously you wouldn't really know what it means because it's supposed to be sort of cryptic and metaphorical, I guess, right?
Okay. Yeah. No, that makes more sense.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I also think that just the vibe of it is scary to me. I don't like it.
Oh yeah, no, I know. It's very fire and brimstone. Very, very. I mean, it might be one of the more dramatic retellings of the end of the world, I think. And so, that's just one of those things that, it is supposed to kind of bring fear. It's supposed to elicit a little bit of fear, for sure.
Oh, mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. Well, and so I decided to cover Revelation just because it's very popular. The Christian Bible is very popular in our culture, and so that would be an easy one for me to choose. But if you look up the concept of eschatology, which is sort of the maybe it's the study of religious doomsday, is the best way to say it.
Okay.
It talks about not just Abrahamic religions, but doomsday cults, mysticism, religions, cosmology, all of these aspects of either religion or quasi-religion have a sort of end time, I guess, motif or theme to them. And it's usually predicted that basically the root underlying theme with all of these mythologies is that the negative world events reach a climax, so that the world is rotten and basically needs to be wiped out. We just got to get rid of all these bad people. And so the world gets to a point where the only thing that can happen is that God removes everybody. And so that is basically across all religions. You think about Noah and the flood, but that being a Bible story, it actually came from Sumeria and the earliest sort of religions. The flood myth has been with us forever, and could possibly be a retelling of that bottleneck that we were talking about that happened 70,000 years ago. It's very possible that the flood myths are a retelling of that catastrophic bottleneck where there were only a few thousand humans left in the world. And so it would make sense that if humanity in its recent history, I guess, maybe not recent, but in its distant history, actually experienced a real life apocalypse, that we would write that into all of our mythology.
I'd co-sign that. I mean, it sounds like something like that would be super traumatic, and you'd want to make sure that, I don't know, I guess
everybody knows it.
Yeah, I mean, it would explain why things would be so shitty, like you're like, oh, by the way, this is what happened, guys. I guess.
Think about, you would get the same event from multiple perspectives. Those perspectives might be something that we call the world religions now.
Yeah. All kind of telling the same story, but with their own flavor.
Yeah. There's an old saying about art that something like a painter paints the same picture over and over just from different perspectives or something like that. That's what you could be with that great bottleneck, right? Because the world's writer is going to be writing about that one bottleneck. And it was probably pretty shitty no matter what. And we're kind of we're just another life form. I don't think we have much control over if an apocalyptic event can or will happen. We like to think we have control over it, but we really don't.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think it might be the ultimate thing, aside from our own mortality. It's the ultimate thing we don't have control over is the fragileness of our environment. And, and I think that just speaks to a core of what we're most insecure about as humans, is how actually fragile we are. For as smart as we are, we also, nature kicks our ass on just a regular day. Could you imagine?
Think about our whole psychological ego is built up to fight against our vulnerabilities as humans, right? So that's it wouldn't be too far-fetched to think that we built this whole thing up to avoid feeling vulnerable.
Create an illusion of safety when I think, to quote Modest Mouse, the earth can just shake us off like fleas. So, and Ayla also, we did mention, we did a podcast, if you recall, back in the day, the early days of X Fathom, we did a podcast on Atlantis, which is another sort of apocalyptic myth.
Yeah, no, that's right. It's been a minute.
I know, right? Go back to listen to those. It's pretty funny. I'm glad my mic is slightly better.
Mine has not gotten any better.
Well, yours was decent from the beginning, so I guess that's okay.
I need to add some sort of filter on this thing. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, I mean, Atlantis being another one of those myths that very well could be tied to the same sort of extinction level event that we experienced as, not early humans, but, in the last 70,000-ish years. Like it's very possible that Atlantis was another one of those civilizations that got decimated by the great bottleneck of Toba. I mean, maybe Toba caused tsunamis all over the world, and that's where you get this, flood mythology.
Yeah. And it's not too far-fetched to think. I mean, you have something like, so you have New Zealand, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was found recently that there's a whole continent that used to be above water, that now sits below water, and New Zealand's just the very top of it, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And some people will point to that being as quote unquote Atlantis, but it's not too far fetched to think there was somebody else or somewhere else that was just in the exact same spot.
Right. Yeah, and like I do believe that off of the coast of Japan, right, they have all of those like old temples that used to be above the water that but now are under like 100 feet of water, just because of the way that the sea levels have risen over the histories. So it's very possible that whatever giant flood happened decimated a lot of civilizations, especially since you think that advanced civilizations would likely be closer to the ocean for trade and all of that type of stuff.
Yeah, and I don't know if we talked about it or like sort of the magic that was within Atlantis based off of like crystals and the notion of the soul or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Did we talk about that?
I don't know if we've mentioned that, but yeah, I do remember. I remember reading into that.
Yeah, because I've come across people that were really interested in like the Book of Thoth and like the Emerald Tablets and sort of stuff. And that was kind of brought up. And there's a weird allegory where you find that when how Plato talks about how they came from over the sea and whatnot, when we're kind of mentioning Atlantis, how you have this civilization that's more internally advanced, like their society is more advanced, but not as advanced as in the technology respect, beating up against something that's more technologically advanced.
Right.
And how at the end, the technologically advanced civilization always wins.
Right.
That ends up being very true within all of like history moving forward.
Yeah. One could even say that was an apocalypse as well, right? The movement from the spiritual paradigm to the scientific one.
Yeah, it's true. And you can be as socially advanced as you want. The one that I'm thinking of is more like the Iroquois Confederacy, because we get a lot of our Constitution, or some parts of our Constitution, from ideas that were presented to us by the Iroquois. But they didn't have guns, so they kind of lost.
Right.
So it's that sort of thing where
I get it for sure.
And looking back at the Atlanteans, they were more societally advanced. If they were real, that could have spelled their doom.
Right. And I believe also quite isolationist in a lot of respects as well, which is another sort of parable to society, to be careful about closing yourself off to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, we can wrap this up soon, but I wanted to do our last little segment and then just a little tack on for some of the psychology that I was able to, pinpoint about the end of the world. But I did want to get your guys' picks for guess the apocalypse, or maybe guess the apocalyptic time frame. So I have a list here of all of the predicted apocalypses that have ever been, I guess, documented. And so you guys can give me a number between, we have to go from, I think it's from 66 to 2020. And I will let you know what apocalypse was happening during that time.
324.
324. Ayla says 324. Survey says. Okay, so 324 is an exact, but I do have a 365. So
okay.
365 was Hilary of Poitiers. Was the early French bishop announced that the end of the world would happen during this year. So 370 or 365 was the end of the world, according to this French bishop, Hilary of Poitiers. Poitiers? How do you spell that? How do you pronounce that? Poitiers.
I'm like the last person.
No idea.
Poitiers.
Pontius?
Poitiers.
Poitiers.
Poutine?
Poutine. Yeah, there you go. But yes, so 365 was the end of the world, according to Hillary here. And Mike, what about you? Give me a number.
1111.
Ooh, I like that. 1111. All right, let's see. So I have a 1000 and I have a 1033. So I'll give you the 1000 first. And obviously that is a very significant date because that would be the millennium. And it would make sense that there would be a lot of predictions about that. So Pope Sylvester II and many others, apparently, various Christian clerics, they all predicted that as the millennium, this would result in riots, and that let's see. Oh, yeah. So the riots in Jerusalem, and then other historians have said that these would spread across the world. Because this is, I guess, during the time of the Crusades. So they predicted that during the millennium, the sort of religious fervor would create this riot that would spread across the world and destroy the world. So
nice.
not as crazy apocalyptic as I thought, but I guess religious war encompassing the world is pretty apocalyptic.
Or worldwide riots.
Worldwide riots. I like it. It's a good band name right there. All right, Ayla, you want to pick another number?
Okay. Let's go with 1402.
Okay, so 1402. Ooh, interesting. You found the 100 years where there was no predictions.
See, I told
Apparently,
you. I'm like
in
the
1400s, there were no predictions. But
God.
So peaceful.
It was so peaceful, especially in 1492. It was very peaceful. But I will give you 13. Let's see. This one's a good one. In 1378, so Arnaldus de Villanova, he said that the Antichrist was going to appear in 1378 and destroy the world. So they were already worried about the Antichrist 1,000 years ago. I think the dude's late.
Fashionably late, all right?
Fashionably late. Yeah, that's true. That's true. The devil does wear Prada, so I guess that Mike, you want to give me another number?
There's a slow burn on that one.
Let's go with the year 666.
Very good. Nice number. Interestingly enough, nothing about 666.
Really?
Of course. Yeah, they were obviously not inspired, because that would have been one I would think for sure. But in the year 500, Hippolytus of Rome, Sextus Julius Africanus, and Irenaeus, all three predicted that Jesus would return. And that the dimensions of Noah's Ark were the predictor that Jesus would return and bring back the end of the world in 500 AD.
Wow.
I think because the Ark had 500 cubits or something like that. It was measured 500 cubits by 500 cubits or something. Probably
like some OG conspiracy theory stuff.
Oh yeah. This is like deep Alex Jones stuff, man.
Yeah.
It's funny is that we might find throughout history that people were more conspiratorial. Like this might be the least conspiratorial we are as humans.
Right. How about we're gonna go back and forth. I was gonna guess another year.
Go ahead.
I could guess another year. No, it's my turn.
Both of you.
986.
986. Okay, let's see here. So I got a 992 to 995.
Ooh, I'm like
which
guessing
is
all the little like holes. I love it. Okay.
yeah. So this one says that it was a Christian belief that coincided with the Feast of Annunciation. The Feast of Annunciation was also called Lady Day and the Feast of Incarnation. Has to do with Archangel Gabriel, the visit of Archangel Gabriel to Virgil. To the Virgin Mary. Sorry. But it was long believed that this would bring forth the Antichrist and thus the end times within 3 years. Antichrist, man. I'm going to have to do an episode on this guy. It's very
Good
popular.
apocalypse.
Yeah.
What is it from American Horror Story? The last
Oh, yeah.
season?
Yeah, he's in that too. He's always in this stuff. I think Mike froze up again. So, Ailey, do you want to do another one?
He's so
You can steal his
contemplative.
turn.
Yeah, he's really thinking over there.
Yes.
All right. So what was the time? What's the earliest we could go?
Let's see, 66 AD.
66. Okay, what about 666? Since you mentioned the Antichrist.
Mike did that one.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
Then 600.
600. I know 600, but I had the 500, which was the Noah's Ark one. There's also 790, which is the prophecy of the second coming of Christ. Christ has been coming back, I tell you. Let's see if I can see some other interesting ones here. Oh, interesting. So in 1346 to 1351, the Black Plague actually became considered the harbinger of the end of the world, which I think is kind of interesting because like that would be if there were any time to believe the end of the world was happening, I would think the Black Death would be it.
Absolutely. No, that was those hard times.
Yeah. So they, I guess, basically throughout Europe during the Black Plague, they thought that this was the harbinger of the end of the world.
Dang.
I'd say that's justified.
Sense.
Yeah.
Pretty scary.
Pestilence is one of the big, Yeah.
It's one of the 4 horsemen.
It is one of the 4 horsemen.
Actually, that reminds me, there's I think it's the Decameron. This is like a little anecdotal book about all the different people reacting to the plague and like how like and they're really human stories. I think that's why it's like lasted so long, is this writer was like, talking about all the people who cheated, all the people who started stealing food and going crazy, and it's funny because it's like a classic book, so you feel really like intellectual reading it, and then you're reading it and you're like, this is like smut town. Like
there's a book, Genealogy of Morality, Nietzsche, where he talks about, I believe it was during the plague or maybe during the Inquisition, both. But the aesthetic class or some of the Christians would flagellate themselves to try to avoid catching the plague. I believe that was it. Or
is that the origin of that?
What, the word flagellation?
Well, the origin of just flagellating, like to prevent,
plague
sickness.
to getting you. I think it just means to like flog or to whip somebody on their back with a bunch of like knotted braids.
No, I know. I'm saying though, like, was that like when was that like? I can't imagine somebody just woke up on a Tuesday and was like, I know what's gonna be great. Like it had to have been a reaction to something. What are you saying? Like
why I'm thinking it's the plague. Like if they were flagellate themselves and they wouldn't catch it, because the plague was a punishment of God.
Right. And it's also akin to asceticism, which is when it comes from the concept of when the Buddha sat and starved himself for 9 years. And so in religious movements, asceticism is like the principle of and practices of extreme self-denial and austerity. So this self-flagellation becomes the bringing the pain, like the monk in the Da Vinci Code, right? it's that, like, the Benedictine monks were that just whip themselves because the pain brings you closer to God.
Yeah.
The suffering,
Yeah, but I think too during the plague that was a thing that they tried to do to preserve themselves, to try to avoid the apocalypse.
Yep. For sure. Well, I would be remiss if we didn't get into some future predictions for the end of the world. I mean,
Oh, can I guess one more year?
Yeah. Go ahead.
1776.
Ooh, good one. Let's see. Is there anything for 1776? 1773. 1773 is a Parisian, but I guess it was an astronomer. It was based on a misunderstanding by an astronomer, Jerome Lalande. But Parisians were convinced that a comet would destroy the world. Because I guess some guy misspoke. Some astronomer misspoke.
Whoops.
Whoopsie.
Yeah.
Forgot to carry the one. My bad.
Right. But yeah, I mean, this is all to say, and like the main crux of this episode was to be kind of a white pill about the end of the world, and take it from a more lighthearted perspective, because I think there's a lot of doom and gloom out there in the world, and I think a lot of people are worried about perhaps things getting worse and worse, and while that is true, I think also we need to have a little bit of perspective about what humanity has gone through psychologically throughout the millennia, and there is a sort of intrinsic quality about humanity that is also always looking around the corner for apocalypse. So, I just wanted to sort of bring this, discussion to the table, to just to say, hey, I know things may look bad, but I just gave you 2,000 years worth of doomsaying that did not come to pass. So, hopefully that can be enough of a white pill for people to realize that this too perhaps will not come to be.
And if you want the black pill, I'll say don't fear the Reaper.
Embrace the darkness.
Yes. Join a Blue Oyster cult. You'll be fine.
Yeah, there you go. And of course, we could have gone into lots of different topics, but I think those could be parsed out for other episodes. I was thinking like doomsday cults, millenarianism again is probably its own topic, but it's just briefly the concept of transformation of a society, that all things will be changed forever. And this is harbored by religious groups and political groups. And it's been around with us forever. So, I think that a little bit of millenarianism is natural, and sometimes we might be looking at the end of the world in a skewed lens.
So I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Have either y'all ever experienced your own personal apocalypse? The ending of the way that you viewed the world and the rebirth.
Yeah. I think anytime you learn something that you might have had a preconceived idea about, it becomes a sort of miniature revelation or apocalypse for sure. As far as paradigm shifting, I would say yes, but that would probably be a little bit too personal for the podcast. There's definitely paradigm shifts that I'm sure we've already communicated with each other as friends. So, but yeah, I definitely have had that happen to me before. No. Ayla, any paradigm shifting in your world?
I think I've mentioned it before. I've almost died a lot of times in my life. So I kind of feel like every single time I come back, it's like Jet Li's the one, where somehow I'm sort of like, I don't know, dissolved into the ethers and then come back. I used to think wiser, but this last run with death was a little bit spookier, I would say, than others. So, I mean, that's the only thing I can think of.
Fair enough. I mean, yes, near-death experiences can definitely be paradigm shifting for sure.
Definitely apocalyptic.
Apocalyptic is a good word for it, for sure. Oh, and I just wanted to remind you guys, just so we're clear, about the craze of the end of the world. We've gone through many apocalypses as just us people here, and I wanted to remind some of you listeners about the apocalypses that we all survived. Anybody remember Y2K?
How could I forget?
Y2K, anybody? Remember that it was going to be the end of the world? Remember that everybody was freaking out? I mean, unless you knew something about computers.
I remember watching the TV, waiting for all the all the electricity to drop.
Right.
and then like nothing happened. Right. I looked at my mom. My mom was just like,
I was so concerned about the end of the world. I went to bed early. I'm like, look, if I'm going to die, I'd rather just be asleep.
Oh, poor Nick.
But yeah. So, that was our first foray into the end of the world, at least in my memorable history. And then obviously we had Nostradamus in the 2012 Mayan calendar. That was a good one. That was a good one because it was particularly occultish in the date, particularly being December 21st, 2012. And of course, the end of the Mayan calendar, when, the Mayans probably were like, just repeat the calendar, bro.
It's just a new year.
It's a circle.
It's a new thing. Yeah. The thing went from here to here.
Right. Yeah, just because we didn't write out 2020 or 2013 doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of people were concerned about that. Nostradamus was one of the progenitors of that, claiming that 2012 would be the end of days, as he was ought to do. Nostradamus was an interesting character. If you've ever read his quatrains, they're kind of like poetry, but abstract poetry. And abstract poetry that you could look at in retrospect and think that it's providing some sort of prophecy.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And just I can give you guys a little bit of an example of that because I did notate it. Michel Nostradame, or Nostradame, maybe. He was a sort of... he was an astrologer, a physician, and a seer in 1503 to 1566, and he wrote a collection of poems called quatrains, and there were 942 of them. And he published that book in 1555. Talk about some sort of occult numbering there. And in his quatrains, people have poured over, especially people who are obsessed with prophecy and the end of the world, and they've dissected his quatrains, which are like little paragraph poems, and tried to extrapolate meaning from them and prophecy and stuff. And I just came across this article in my research that said that we actually missed another end of the world, guys. It was supposed to happen last year. Did you guys know this? I missed the memo.
Yeah, ditto.
I guess Nostradamus said that 2021 was going to be the year, and he got it mixed up, you guys. It wasn't 2012; it was 2021.
Dyslexia
Yes.
is a bitch.
Yes, and so apparently he predicted zombies, asteroids, and a plague. And the predictions are in the quatrain here. The quatrain says, "After great trouble for humanity, a greater one is prepared. The great mover renews the ages, rain, blood, milk, famine, steel, and plague. Is the heavens' fire seen, a long spark running?" So that's just a taste of his quatrains and how sort of vague and abstract they are. But if you wanted to, I guess you could say there is something there, right? Plague. We did have that.
Well, I was thinking about how
zombies. Yeah. You think about what, Ayla?
Well, I was just thinking like daylight savings time. Was that around during his time? Because it could account for some of the misfiring of the dates, maybe. If you want to get technical about it, I don't know.
Or it depends on what calendar he was using, right? Because I believe the Islamic calendar is still in 1500. So,
fun.
Maybe we're only in the 1500s, guys, and in 500 years he'll be justified.
That's a good episode for some time is like calendars and just like,
differences in calendars.
Yeah, because I mean, like, yeah, I don't know. There's something to that.
Mm-hmm. Well, so people have claimed that quatrain predicted the year that we had. I mean, it's not too far off. Great trouble for humanity, sure. A greater one is prepared, and we might be talking about geopolitical crises, maybe. The reign of blood, milk, famine, steel, and plague. Is the heavens fire seen? A long spark running? Maybe a meteor?
Or
Comet?
steel. Is that Mike's AI? Little steel bots.
It could be a steel bot. Yeah. For sure. I mean, so like, and this is, this is just to sort of display the ambiguity in which you could probably write a little stanza and in 100 years from now have something be reflected or correlated to it.
There is another one that I found interesting.
Is it Sylvia Brown?
No, something with Nostradamus. He talked about like a great bear. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to pull it if it's from Revelation or if it's from Nostradamus. Actually,
the dragon gorges itself on clay, or something like, or the dragon leaks water.
That's so obscure. That's like me saying like the plant falls down in 2023.
So here's something that Nostradamus has said, and my uncle would bring it up all the time as far as talking about apocalypse, that once we see Russia enter a war, because they're the bear, at least within our time, then you would see something apocalyptic. And I just pulled it up. I don't know if it's the exact quote that he would talk about, but it sounds very similar. When the tiny bear from the city of the big winds takes the crown, ye shall know the end is nigh. A large bear from the east will foul the eagle's nest, and the confused eagle will lose its way.
Sounds pretty creepy.
Pick
right?
A better mascot.
The eagle, of course, representing America.
Yes.
And the bear from the east representing Russia. And that's the way that he would always frame it. And he's like, yeah, man, it's going to come up soon. He was a bigger believer than I. But he was like, yeah, the end is coming. Like, this was what's going to happen. As long as Russia doesn't get involved in a world war, we'll be fine. And now we sit on the crux of this thing. And it's kind of strange to think about. Like, so.
Oh, yeah.
Where Nostradamus gets vague enough to where we run to his prediction. It's like, yeah, shit.
Right. right. Absolutely. And, that gets into a little bit of the psychology, and this is where we'll wrap it up. Because I found this article from Scientific America, and it's entitled "The Psychology Reveals the Comforts of the Apocalypse." And just one particular paragraph that I wanted to point to, the concept of self-fulfilling prophecy. And it says the University of Minnesota neuroscientist Shmuel Lissick, who studies the fear belief system, believes at its heart the concept of doomsday evokes an innate and ancient bias in most mammals. Quote, the initial response to any hint of alarm is fear. This is the architecture in which we are built, Lissick says. Over evolutionary history, organisms for a better safe than sorry approach survive. This mechanism has had consequences for both the body and the brain, where the fast-acting amygdala can activate a fear-stress response before higher cortical areas have a chance to assess the situation and respond more rationally. But why would anyone enjoy kindling this fearful response? Lissick suspects that some apocalyptic believers find the idea that the end is nigh to be validating. Individuals with a history of trauma or traumatic experiences, for example, may be fatalistic. For these people, finding a group of like-minded fatalists is reassuring. There may also be comfort in being able to attribute doom to some larger cosmic order, such as the ancient Mayan prophecy. This kind of mythology removes any sense of an individual responsibility. He says that there's a broader allure, or there's even broader allure to knowing the precise end date. Quote, apocalyptic beliefs make essential threats, the fear of our mortality, predictable, Lissick says. Lissick, in collaboration with National Institute of Mental Health neuroscientists, blah, 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 has found that when an unpleasant or painful experience, such as an electric shock, is predictable, we relax. The anxiety produced by uncertainty is gone, and knowing when the end will come doesn't appeal equally to everybody, of course, but for many of us, it's paradoxically a reason to stop worrying. And that's the end of that little thing. But all of that to say that there might be something sort of self-soothing about knowing the future. And that, like Ayla says, that preparation for the ultimate catastrophe may give you a sense of peace of mind that even if realistically you might not, live through the end of the world, you at least feel like you have prepared as much as you can, or you know what is in store for you. Maybe.
Yeah, I can see that.
I think that might come from our weird duality as being both predator and prey animals. Where there's like, as far as a prey animal goes, it's fulfilling. It's good to know when you're going to die, which might be the reason why you see some prey just give up. Like, they don't make any noises when they're being eaten. They don't do it. They just, all right, this is it. This is my time to go. There's some sort of comfort in that. So I can see that working. But also, fear makes you really dumb.
It does.
It shuts off your brain completely. So it makes sense where there would be some comfort in that fear, just knowing things, even if it's false things.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, better to know that the world is going to end in a month than be in a fearful tizzy for the next 30 days, right? Like, I guess that's the mechanism, right? So it's like if you're higher in a certain like negative emotion, then you might want to project the end to a fixed date so that you don't have to expend that sort of fear energy anymore.
Yeah, suspends the whole uncertainty principle. You're certain about a bad thing, even if like you can place your bets on that bad thing happening.
Right. Yeah. Ayla, do you got any thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It makes sense that if you would, just try to kind of get some sort of control over a uncontrollable situation, then that would be soothing. I could see that.
And what's more uncontrollable than the complete destruction of everything that we know exists?
Here's hoping not.
Hey, absolutely. I say let's party in Zion for like the next couple years while the world goes.
Death by Saturnalia.
Yeah,
Ayla had it right.
I mean,
yeah. All right. Well, I think that's all I got for tonight. You guys, do you have anything else you wanted to add before we wrap it up?
No. I do apologize as listening. I'm really tired. The last 2 weeks have been quite taxing on my little brain, and so I think my creativity is pretty nil today. So rest up, folks. Rest up if you need it.
Yes, that is true. Let your brain have some rest. For sure, it's very important, especially in stressful times. Give yourself a little bit of an outlet. It's very important, and remember that the world probably will not end tomorrow.
But if it does, enjoy the apocalypse.
There you go. Get the popcorn.
Yeah.
There's
no need to worry about anything. The world's ending anyways.
Right. Buy a motorcycle. Let's just try.
Yeah, why not?
Just blast the REM song until oblivion smacks you in the face.
And dance. And also pet a cat. Dance and pet a cat before
you go.
Those are the two things.
All right. Well, thank you guys. And thank you to Mike and Ayla for joining me for this conversation. Always appreciate talking to you guys. So thank you very much. And thank you guys for listening. We really appreciate it. If you have any feedback for us, please consider giving us a comment. A subscription to our YouTube page would really help us out, and maybe a thumbs up if you're feeling so generous. We very much appreciate you out there. Thank you for taking the trip to listen to this episode. We hope that you enjoyed it. What's your favorite apocalyptic movie? Let us know down in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And we're a part of a network of podcasts. If you want to check out what we and our friends do, we have the Thinkering Talks page on Facebook that has all of our podcasts, but you get us here at Exofathom Monday nights at 8 p.m. We also have Screen Time Continuum, which is Wednesday and Sunday nights at 8:30, where we review movies and TV shows for you guys. Our buddy Keelan has his own podcast called If Numbers Could Talk. It's on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Go check him out on Facebook and on YouTube as well. Be on the lookout because him and his wife are starting a new podcast on Saturday, and so that should be a lot of fun. If you're into relationship advice and sort of, the married life and maybe relationships and sort of navigating the waters of interpersonal things like that, be on the lookout for Keelan's new podcast with his wife on Saturdays. I can't tell you time because I'm not exactly sure yet, but Dijon the Mustard also has a podcast. He's a part of our group, and he does a Twitch stream on Strawberries and Coffee, where he plays video games, and he's always got something new going on. Dude has more video games than I've seen anybody have video games. So like if you can think of an obscure game, he's probably already streamed it. So go check him out on Twitch, Strawberries and Coffee. He also has a YouTube page, where he puts all of his streams up at Strawberries and Coffee. So go check him out. But yeah, in the meantime, Cognonauts, you stay out there, and we'll catch you on the next Exofathom. Good night.
All times are Pacific. Peace.
Later.
All times are specific. To the end of the world.
Yes.
Specific end of the world time.